Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining what is going to be an incredible fireside chat on Agentic AI in customer experience. So, my name is Alicia Harrington, and I'll be the moderator for today's 30-minute session. We're here to explore how Agentic AI, essentially, when we think about agents, how they can perceive context, make decisions, take action autonomously across the enterprise, and how we're thinking about this being really reshaped in the area of personalized customer journeys. So it's a really timely and strategically important topic here. We're speaking to customers across the board, and customers are absolutely demanding what's more relevant, more personalized interactions than ever before. So in short, when we think about leveraging AI for deeply tailored and proactive customer engagement, we think it's really critical for companies as they remain to stay incredibly competitive in a dynamic marketplace. So I'm very excited to dive into the topic with these two fantastic experts. First, I'd love to introduce Jude Kana from NTT Data. He is the Director in Customer Experience at NTT Data, and he's been working in the CX space for over 20 years now, leading the CX advisory and customer success functions. We're also joined by, of course, Cameron Adams from ServiceNow here, Senior Manager and Customer Industry Workflows, who's got great extensive experience across AI-driven workflows and how we're thinking about customer experience innovation. So welcome both Jude and Cameron. Thanks so much for being here.
Great to be here.
Fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to what's promised to be a really insightful conversation with you both. So let's get started. Let's talk about the big picture here. We think about personalization. It's really become the cornerstone of customer experience. It's no longer just a nice to have. In Forbes, I'm seeing, stats of generating up to 40% more revenue than those that are not using generative AI when we think about that in the customer service journey. So really, I want to just focus on how you're actually seeing AI play out with your customers and how we can really shape a lot of these journeys. So, Jude, the first question across to you: how do you see Agentic AI fundamentally redefine personalized customer journeys? And why is this strategic shift that we're seeing so significant for companies? Why does this matter for the bottom line? How is a competitive advantage? What are you seeing, Jude, in the market?
Yeah, thanks, Alicia. So yeah, I think AI has already had a huge impact on customer experience, as we've all seen, right? I think in some ways you could see this as simply the next evolution of automation in customer experience, but in other ways I think it's utterly transformative, right? And automation and customer experience, what I mean by that is, providing self-service options for customers. I mean, this is nothing new. We've been doing this for a couple of decades now, at least. But up until 2023 and the AI revolution, I guess, the self-service journeys that customers can take, they're essentially pre-designed, right? So somebody in your organization has created that chatbot flow that a customer can take, or the options that are available in an IVR. I like to think of these journeys as railway tracks, essentially, through your organization, right? These are linear, pre-designed paths that customers can take, and they're kind of aligned with your business processes. If a customer inquiry falls slightly outside the bounds of these pre-designed paths, though, well, they can get derailed, right? They might fall back to the human-assisted contact center service, for example, or, worst case scenario, they give up and go somewhere else. So with generative and conversational AI, we're now taking away the need for these railway lines, these fixed linear paths. And instead, we're providing customers with a GPS, right? So now the customer simply announces their intended destination, and the AI will try its best to guide them to that destination. I think this is fantastic for customer experience, right? It feels more personal. It feels less static compared to the pre-designed self-service flows. But it's still reactive service, and it's still aligned with only one inquiry at a time. And so that's where I think Agentic AI is really the game changer here. With Agentic, we're talking about autonomous AI that can act on behalf of users, that can adapt in real time to customer inquiries, real-time data feeds, to customer sentiment and more, right? We're also starting to move from reactive service to proactive service or proactive actions. So to extend my little analogy there around the railway to GPS, with Agentic, we're getting to the point where the customer just doesn't have to take the journey in the first place. So instead of responding to customer requests, the Agentic AI can use data to proactively provide service to customers. So it's like moving from customers asking, how do I get this thing done, to, hey, we've just done something for you. Here's the update, and here's the next step. So, yeah, I think this is hugely strategically significant, but not in the way I think that a lot of organizations have been looking at the benefits of AI so far, to be honest. I think there's been a lot of focus on AI from a productivity and a cost savings perspective. But I think the real game changer of Agentic, I think it's far more compelling. I think there's an opportunity here to significantly uplift customer experience and loyalty. Alicia, you mentioned 40% uplift in revenue for companies that really focus on personalization and do it well. I think with Agentic, we can now move from designing these single linear journeys to actually owning outcomes on behalf of a customer, proactively providing service based on data about that particular customer. I mean, if you can provide help before a customer has to even lift a finger, if you can save that customer from taking a journey in the first place, I think that's your key to loyalty and lifetime value.
Absolutely. Great insights. Thank you for that. And Cameron, I know you're seeing a lot of activity as well. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's incredibly exciting to see the innovation in the market and, these flexible, adaptable, human-like, relatable conversations that can be created by the technology now, compared to those very stilted railroad track experiences that many of us are used to with chatbots is a fantastic game changer. I think, though, your point about personalization is really well made. As compelling as these conversations can be and adaptable as they can be, they're only as personal as the data that they're presented with in context. And so when we think about how to design effective personalized journeys when using LLMs and agentic AI, we really have to think about how do we bring the right customer data into the context window and throughout the conversation. So it becomes a data management challenge as well. Organizations really need to be considering how do we connect the dots of the various sources of customer data in our organization? How do we bring those together in the moment that service is happening so that the agentic AI can present customers with a conversation that is truly relevant to them and is truly personalized. So that data management challenge, that data integration challenge, it's a big one to solve. It's one that certainly we're looking at very deeply as an organization, and I think it's totally crucial to personalization.
Absolutely. And building on that, I mean, we talked about personalization, we talked about the opportunities, but if we think about proactive customer engagement, so really helping the organization shift to not be so sort of knee-jerk reaction, but when we look at it, the promises of AI and CX is really the ability to almost anticipate the needs before the customer even asks, as you sort of rightfully mentioned. So when we talk about predictive service, real-time personalization, we want to sort of think about how organizations can get into the right operational efficiency by reducing their cost to serve, speeding up the time to serve, all of those great things. But then, I'm seeing some other stats such as, when we look at the customer support area, leveraging AI, we can not just think about operational efficiency of, up to 20, 30% on average when we think about customer satisfaction scores, but also when we think about even AI-driven recommendations for the customer support teams or operational teams that are supporting the customers, we really want to think about this almost this customer intelligence hub that really fuels to power the whole organization to serve the customer. So I guess given all these possibilities that we're talking about, Jude, over to you. In what ways do you think AI really drives true proactive customer engagement? So when we think about those predictive service scenarios, how can organizations really harness this to anticipate needs and take full advantage of this area?
Yeah, I absolutely. I think proactive engagement is one of the key benefits of agentic AI. And when you think about it, why do people contact organizations? Often it's when something's gone wrong, or if there's an issue, or customers are confused. But if you can predict it, you can prevent it, right? If we look at a simple banking example, say you're a customer of a bank, and after a large payment, say a mortgage payment, goes out of your account balance may fall below zero. Now, the current state is that you find out about this after the fact. You might even have a penalty fee applied to your account, even though you have other accounts with the same bank that could easily cover the shortfall. And so the result is, you have to call the bank and try and rectify this situation. And at the same time, you're feeling frustrated, you're feeling a bit blindsided, and you're feeling penalized. So switch this to Agentic AI, which can monitor real-time transactions, is aware of future transactions, and so it can evaluate that actually you're going to go into arrears tomorrow when the mortgage payment comes out. And from here, it could send a proactive outreach to say, hey, looks like you don't have enough money in account A to cover your mortgage payment. So here are some options. We could transfer $1,000 from account B to cover the shortfall. We could delay the payment by 2 days because we know that your salary comes in on the 15th, for example. Or you could apply for a short-term overdraft protection. And then whatever option the customer chooses is just done, right? Instantly, no forms, no follow-up calls, just done. So this real-time personalization is based on data feeds, and it's based on real-time information about you and your current situation. And it's that example of proactively providing you with service before you even know that you need it, right? And I think you can see how this completely shifts the customer relationship as well, right? From a bank that feels like it's penalizing you with fees to one that's actually looking out for you and solving problems before they happen. So I think this is really getting that personalization down to that segment of one, which I think has been a target for many years, right? I think to capitalize on this, really need to focus on how to leverage AI for your competitive differentiation. And that's about focusing on the journeys that are going to have the biggest impact in terms of customer experience and loyalty. And it's traditional customer journey mapping and customer centric sort of mapping of where can we remove complexity for our customers? What are the journeys where we think we can proactively provide service that starts to feel truly personal? And of course, secret to this is going to be to start small and scale out, start with one or two key journeys, and then build the foundations, the support, the data that Cam mentioned, to support the AI, and then scale from there.
Those are all really fantastic points. And Cam, I know you're seeing this as an absolute game changer as well. So what are your perspectives?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'm going to say something a little bit controversial given the Agentic AI topic. I don't think we really need to bring AI into the mix to have effective proactive engagement with customers. Most of the organizations that I talk to don't engage proactively enough when it's very clear that an engagement is required because of a point in a customer's journey. It could be an upcoming appointment. It could be something like you described, Jude, where an account balance goes into arrears. There are many points already in workflows. Suppose an insurance claim is underway and it's been delayed because of parts unavailability. You don't need AI to reach out to the customer as long as you know that the workflow step has been updated with that status. You can and really should get in touch with the customer proactively and let them know. So I think there's an amazing opportunity for customers to even just get started on that proactive journey. Don't be daunted. Don't feel like you have to be taking this step all the way into agentic AI to start engaging customers proactively. There's an awesome starting point, and it's just start taking that very concrete customer journey orientated data that you've got and start communicating with your customers proactively. Now, that said, that's the crawl stage, I guess, of crawl, walk, run with proactive engagement. And there are all sorts of amazing possibilities to be proactive in engagement by understanding customers in a much more deep way using this sort of technology. For many years, we've seen predictive models around customer churn and proactive engagement to help prevent customers from moving on to a competitor if there are many indicative signals in that customer's behavior that suggest that maybe they're going to move on. And it goes even further into some really interesting kind of predictive AI driven engagement from signals in networks, for example. So one of our customers in the UK, BT, implemented AI operations to monitor aspects of their telecommunications network, and were able to predictively, proactively detect outages and improve average resolution times from something like 4 and a bit hours to minutes. So for sure, once you've taken that low-hanging fruit of engaging proactively at defined stages in a customer journey, there is much more benefit to be realized, and every step that you take along that journey offers additional benefit and engagement to customers. So I really think that I feel passionately, actually, that this is an area that organizations should look much more closely at, because there's just so much opportunity.
Yeah. And no, you have touched on a really important topic that I want to actually focus in on for both of you, is that absolutely there's a fine line to when we think about customers still craving human empathy and that personalized touch. And also organizations that have been, let's just say a bank has been focused on agribusiness for so long. They know everything about the sector. Their deep domain expertise in that area is so important to harness that, whilst also creating that personal touch. That trust is absolute paramount. I know our CEO says, trust is the ultimate human currency. You earn it in drops, but you lose it in buckets. Absolutely. And so, in fact, surveys actually show that 3/4 of consumers who feel customer service these days is just too impersonal and almost automated. And, nearly 9 in 10 business leaders say themselves that, it's this balance of AI combined with human empathy and bringing all of that together. So I guess in that same veins, Jude, I want to ask you, how are you thinking about when you're talking to your customers about preserving that all important human touch, and what sort of strategies would you recommend to how these organizations can build customer trust, think about their interactions as well, and ensure that they're providing empathy and oversight when they think about those end-to-end customer service journeys?
Yeah, for sure. Look, again, I would say first focus on the high impact journeys. And not necessarily on the efficiency gains. The example I gave around the bank, where the bank can completely reverse the relationship from one that feels kind of adversarial, I'm being penalised for not constantly staying on top of my accounts, to one where it actually really feels like the bank is working with me in that sort of relationship mode. To give you another example, maybe you've purchased something in a store, but now you're looking to lodge a return through the retailer's website, but the standard return window has already passed, right? Current state is that the system simply refuses and says, sorry, too late, can't return it. This feels pretty rigid and cold and impersonal. I think with Agentic AI, the retailer can now recognize you as a regular customer with a long history, and instead of a flat rejection, can provide a more personalized response. So that, even though the return window has passed, we've extended it for you as a valued customer. The AI can then go through and update the various systems that is required to allow the return to go through in this sort of exception case. I think trust in the AI and trust in the organization will come naturally if the AI, A, does provide a better experience, and B, actually does its job properly and accurately. Let's be real. I think for AI to provide accurate and governed outcomes does require some work, right? It requires some strong foundations. Cam, you mentioned it already. It requires, in particular, accurate data, right? In the CX domain, one of the sources of data is knowledge. So knowledge about your company's products and processes and how to get things done. So if you don't have accurate knowledge foundation in place, then you're risking an underwhelming AI, or worse, an AI that provides wrong answers. We've all heard the word hallucinations, right? Yes, strong knowledge is crucial. And I would say it's probably fair to say that knowledge management as a practice has long been a neglected domain within enterprises, right? Now, to date, I think that's actually been okay because we have humans. We have humans in the contact center, for example, who can sort of paper over the gaps in corporate knowledge. But with AI, that's not good enough, right? We need to ensure we're feeding accurate knowledge to the AI so it can do its job and do it correctly. The good news is that it's not necessary to go full agentic, full automation straight away. So echoing your thoughts there, Cam, and just in being more proactive and looking after your workflow. But you can iterate over the workflow, and you can replace parts of this workflow as you go, but keeping humans in the loop where you need to. So, say for example, the returns policy in my example around a return is ambiguous in some way. Maybe you bought a desktop computer and a monitor as a bundle, and now you just want to return the monitor. So in this case, the AI might not have the information, doesn't know whether this is allowed. The AI could still draft a personalized response and can forward that response and the interaction over to a human agent to then take over the conversation and work with the customer with a bit more empathy and with some human intelligence. And then as you improve the foundations, right, as you improve knowledge, as you improve access to systems, then you can start to look to apply more automation and let the AI agent do more. So yeah, it's human in the loop, absolutely, both to start with as you're starting on your AI journey and for where it matters. I think there are probably 3 human in the loop examples that you could look to apply. One is where the agent drafts a response and a human approves. A second is where the agent can act within limits, right? So within constraints, say refunds under $1,000, otherwise escalate to a human. And then I think there is a human only, right? So reserve that for these cases where human empathy and judgment are required. To take the banking example, hardship cases, right? So if the AI can recognize actually that missing a mortgage payment seems to be a recurring problem, so instead of providing the same 3 options every month, transfer this through to a human for that empathetic human-to-human conversation.
Excellent. I mean, absolutely. Trust and human touch are very, very key to unlocking not just the longevity of a customer lifetime value, but I also want to sort of start to pivot a little bit and talk about, let's consider the whole organization. So we know that customer service teams aren't working alone in isolation. It's not just a front office issue dealing with the customer. It's also requires the whole organization to almost work in tandem. So from this sort of front to back office approach, I want to remind us all of a bit of a stat where companies are still struggling. I mean, think about 55% of consumers, they still feel as though that they're talking to separate, disconnected departments rather than one unified company as a whole. And we've all been there as well from, working with organizations. And when I think about, fixing this, it's not just a technology issue, but it's also thinking about culture, process changes, getting everybody on board, and linking, importantly, the front end customer interactions with, the back end systems, but also the operational teams that are supporting really, really critical handoffs in the entire process. So just given this topic, Cameron, how do we align and empower the whole organization to, operate seamlessly? And how do you think about AI in this transformation as well?
Yeah, before I directly answer the question how we do it, I think I just want to emphasize how vital this is. There's an enormous gap in perception between an internal view of solving customer problems and how we experience the solution of problems ourselves as customers. ServiceNow did its annual customer experience report, and that was released a little earlier this year. And we found that 69% of Australian contact center agents had the perception that it took on average 30 minutes to resolve a customer's inquiry. But when we surveyed Australians as customers in the market, they said that it took on average 5.2 days. And, that's an enormous perception gap. And one that I think is vital for everyone to consider when we think about deploying agentic AI into conversations, and really to realize that much of the time it's not possible to resolve customer inquiries end to end during the course of that conversation itself. Even if you can plug a conversational AI agent into some backend systems to be able to do some stuff in the moment, we really need to think about how do we drive workflow through a whole organization? What role might agentic AI have to play in tasks that take place out in the field, in the middle office, in the back office, so that we can really deliver outcomes for customers? Because ultimately that's what we want when we call up contact centers. We call it because we need outcomes. So how do we deliver those more effectively? So, I think I touched on it a little bit. Some of the answer is about unpacking those processes as they traverse the various silos within an organization and looking for opportunities to drive standardization, automation, and deploy agentic AI throughout those processes in order to deliver those outcomes much more quickly. I can give you a bit of an example of what I mean by that, and it kind of goes to your banking topics, Jude. So in the UK, Lloyd's Bank is a customer of ours, and it used to take about 7 days on average to hunt down missing transferred payments when someone had transferred money from one person to another and it had gone astray. Took about 7 days to hunt that down. And so imagine that as a banking customer. You may call up the most empathetic contact center agent or banker, and they say, I'm so sorry that that's happened to you. It must be so stressful that money's gone missing for you, and just bear with us. We'll get that sorted out for you. It just usually takes about a week. It's just not really good enough, right? So we implemented automation into that payments process, and we're able to achieve a reduction in resolution time for 80% or so of those missing payments cases down to 36 seconds. That's a profound difference in customer experience. Not only is that a great gain in efficiency from wasted time in people handling that task through various departments, it also means that banker could answer that question in the moment on the call of, and your money's back, we found it. What a huge difference that can make to customers. So I guess that's how I would look at it. I would be thinking about processes end to end, really the process architecture that supports customer service. Analyze that, unpack it, look for opportunities to deploy automation within it, and really deliver profound improvements to customer experience and close that perception gap.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. I know, obviously, Lloyds Bank, they're one of the largest banks in the UK. And I think they're running sort of 90% of their exception payment processes on ServiceNow. So that's
right.
That's incredible and really material shifts in terms of the customer outcomes. So thank you for shedding light on that. Jude, what are you seeing working with customers?
Yeah, look, I think it's early days, certainly for Agentic, but we're definitely starting to see closer interaction between front and back office. I think one thing we're seeing is a bit of a convergence of technology features across both front and back office. So there are now feature and capability overlaps between the different systems, and architecturally there are decisions to be made. Should we surface core controls in the CRM? Should we surface the CRM in the contact center UI, for example? And also, everything comes with AI now, right? So there's decisions, which AI should I use where in the customer journey? I think the answer is going to vary according to use case, of course. But one thing to think about with a CX lens on is how close is the AI to the real-time interaction data? So if the AI can't receive real-time voice or chat feeds, for example, then your ability to personalize in the moment is much reduced there. And I agree with Cam. It's about mapping a couple of journeys covering both front and back office, identifying those friction points, especially those that are cross-departmental. And then at each of these points, thinking about, okay, where is an AI that could help? And critically, what is the data that the AI would need at this point? I also think that we need to treat this as a continuous transformation too. This is not a one-off project. And I think that we need to use journey mapping as the blueprint for that. I don't think that's changed.
That's fantastic. Fascinating discussion, both of you. Our final question is going to be a fast fire question. When we think about the horizon in front of us, it's super exciting. I want to ask both of you, what's your vision for the future when we think about CX and AI and as we start to project into what could be, transforming in 2030 or how do organizations stay ahead of the curve? Cam, I'm going to ask you first. What's your vision?
A fast fire vision. Okay. I think there's a really fascinating thing that's just emerging right now, and that is something I'm looking forward to as a consumer: agents that can act on our behalf as consumers. So Google announced it earlier in the year. They're beginning to launch Buy for Me, which is where an agent can go out, research products, present options, and then actually execute on a transaction without me ever needing to visit the merchant's website. I believe that in 5 years' time, we're going to see agents acting on behalf of customers for service as well. And that's something that organizations really need to consider preparing for, because these machine customers, they don't mind how long they have to wait in the queue. They have all the time in the world. If you think your resourcing challenges are there today, just wait until people can launch 5 agents on their behalf. I think it's going to be a great and empowering capability for us as consumers. But I think the industry really needs to consider, how do we tackle more structured service endpoints so that these machine customers can consume them? And also, how do we, drastically increase automation in our organizations so we can cope with this increased volume that may be coming from these machine customers in the future? So it's something to watch, in my view.
Thanks, Cameron. Over to you, Jude.
Yeah, look, I entirely agree. The personal agent thing, I think, is going to be fantastic. And I think these agents will act in a network of agents, and these agents can work across organizations. So I agree in terms of enabling your technology, because you may need to put APIs, for example, on systems that don't have APIs right now, so that you can start getting ready for this future where you're sharing across organization and with other automations. I think in 5 years' time, 100% the technology will be there. I think with anything, business change and business readiness takes commitment and time. And 5 years is a long time, but it's also not that long. So I do think that, for organizations that build those strong foundations and really do take a customer-centric approach, then we're going to see service become proactive by default. We're going to have that personalization down to the segment of one, and we're going to see the human role be elevated to focus on the complex, the emotional, the high-value interactions, while the AI can sort of handle all the operational complexity. I think in 5 years, my fervent hope is that the best organizations won't just feel smarter, they'll feel more caring. Because the agentic AI will reduce customer effort with that proactive service, and will leave the humans to focus on what humans do best, which is really to deliver meaningful interactions in those moments of need.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cameron and Jude, for sharing such amazing, thoughtful insights. I mean, it's clear that Agentic AI has enormous potential to really elevate customer experience. I appreciate how you both candidly highlighted both the opportunities, the challenges, the strategies to actually get it right. And unfortunately, that's all we have time for today, but this has been an incredible conversation. I know I've learned a lot, and I'm sure our audience has as well. Thank you so much to our speakers, and on behalf of NTT Data and ServiceNow, I thank you to everybody who has tuned in, and we hope you found this discussion as valuable as we did. And stay curious, keep innovating with empathy, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.